Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over.
Well, hello there and welcome back to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. We're into week 5 already of the Allianz Football League, at least, and we'll talk hurling as well in a little while with Michael Duignan. But first we're going to dive into the weekend's football action. Conor Neville is from RTÉ Sport and joins us here in studio. And on the line as well, Peter Canavan. Peter, how are things?
All's good, lads. Thanks.
Good to have you with us, Peter, and Conor as well. As I said, it's 6 weeks to the championship from this weekend, Conor. Hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose it's not coming quite as hot in the heels as it did in previous leagues, which means Donegal might not pull up as easily this time. They might give it a go and get to a final. But yeah, it's looming fast. Yeah, everyone has to get in gear.
Yeah. Peter, are you on board the Kobe McDonald hype train after last weekend?
Who wouldn't be? What a breath of fresh air to the game as a whole. Someone like that coming in with no inhibition, and there's great talk about him as an underage starlet, and you're wondering would he be fit to make the step up, and there is a big step up from minor under 20 to senior. Let's make no mistake about that. But the way in which he announced himself to the senior stage was something else. First, 3 or 4 touches, a goal, and 2 or 3 points, and the manner of them. The goal wasn't straightforward by any matter of means. How many young players would have taken the ball in and tapped it over for their first touch and for their first introduction to senior? The goal was on, did the right thing, but all the scores, the balance and the poise that he displays is natural. That can't be coached, I don't think. And he's a natural talent, and he's playing with a smile on his face. Now, from Andy's point of view, probably that was the time to bring him in when things were going really well. They were on top, they were going to get ball, and he was going to get it. So look, there's bigger tests that lie ahead for him, absolutely. But yeah, brilliant player, great to see him. And the downside of it for Mayo and for a lot of neutrals is we mightn't get to see him grace the Gaelic fields for much longer.
Yeah, I think they might have him a bit longer than they initially thought this year, Kobe McDonald. Mayo playing Armagh this Sunday. Peter, from a management point of view, how do you try and manage a star like Kobe McDonald now coming through? He burst onto the scene with that 1-4 last weekend. He's still only 18 years of age, still in school in Gertner Abbey. So how do they try and manage this now over the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, I think Andy's clever enough to deal with that. He's aware that there's going to be a bit of hype, but that deflects from a lot of other players in the team. They can get on about their business. I do think moving forward, he'll be looking at Kobe as bonus territory. I don't know if he will be starting him come championship. Time will tell. But I think Andy would know the crack well enough himself, and he's very savvy when dealing with the media. So they'll protect him, and I don't think they'll be throwing him into too many deep ends in terms of the remainder of the National League. And if they have him for the championship and the ground gets firmer, what a great bonus. And if he's not starting games, they're not heaping pressure on him. But if he continues in that mode, mind you, he's going to have to start. But as I said, let's judge him under, if they're a few points down going into the last 10 or 15 minutes against Armagh, then we'll see how well he stands up to inter-county football. So there's bigger tests ahead for sure.
It feels like a very Mayo story that they get this prodigy and suddenly he has to head off to Australia, and it's like a tantalising glimpse they get of him. If he performs any better, I feel like we're going to be in for one of the most extreme campaigns of emotional blackmail we've ever seen in Gaelic games if he plays any better come the summer. But yeah, it was quite an opening bow. We've been hearing about him for a while. I know Lee Keegan was talking about how the first time he encountered him was during COVID when they had these sort of regional 4-man pods where they'd be training in small groups back when there were still travel restrictions. And Kieran McDonald was James Horne's selector, and he brought Kobe along as a 13-year-old, I think. And he was struck by his kicking ability even then. Lee was, and it was apparent then. And Lee's talking in his column this week about how they played Crossmalina and
that was a brilliant match, actually.
Semi-final last year. Yeah. Kobe. The footage is on Facebook there.
Well, I think the full game is actually on YouTube and it's worth watching back. But he went up, I think, for a ball at one stage in that game. It was in Charlestown. There was a great crowd at it. And just the leap on him and some of the scores that he kicked was absolutely
he kicked
brilliant.
10 and all. And some of the frees even were from way out. Like you wouldn't have thought he'd have had the legs, but they were... it was an incredible performance. Now Westport, of course, won, which
they did. One of the great club games that we saw last year. Peter, your thoughts on Armagh? Just thinking about them before we came on here, it feels like they're in a better position than they actually are in Division 1 insofar as they've played quite well at stages in the matches, but maybe they haven't gathered as many points as they would have liked on the table.
That's it, exactly. If you look at their performances, especially against a really good Donegal team, if they had converted the penalty chance at the very end, that was anybody's game. They were really competitive against Galway and should have defeated Galway in the athletic ground. So they're playing at a pretty high standard. Of course, there'll be a few areas maybe that Kieran McGeeney will not be happy with, and the conversion rate maybe something in particular. But the fact of the matter is they are in relegation trouble. And whilst it's a big game this weekend, I think it's Saturday the 14th, they play Dublin in Croke Park, and to me that could well be the game that decides who's relegated. So look, they have a few bites to retain their Division 1 status, but if you're looking at it, presuming that Monaghan, who don't have any points at this stage, are searched to go down, you have Dublin, Armagh and Galway. One of Dublin, Armagh and Galway are going to be relegated. So look, there's big games coming up, and I think Kieran McGeeney, whilst they've performed well out of Division 2 before, it's not something that he would be expecting from this group of players.
And if they were to be relegated, hypothetically, if you think about the Galway match where some of those breaches cost them, and that match the same against Roscommon, they missed a penalty late on against Donegal the last day. Yeah,
it's a very strange campaign. On the balance of play on all those games, they could have won all those games. They're doing an awful lot right, and they seem to be winning a mountain of possession. I mean, I know Kieran McGeeney is complaining about the midfield battles that go on, but they're not struggling in that area, it appears. Their defence is pretty strong. They're creating a mountain of chances. They seem to be running through teams, but it's just when they get to that final third or that there's some strange hesitancy takes over. I mean, they're obviously they didn't score a goal again at the weekend, and I think they've. He doesn't like talking about. They have 5 goals, I think, in their last 11 competitive games, league and championship, going back to the start of last year, which is less than 1 goal every 2 games, which is a poor enough rate. Now, it wasn't for the. It wasn't due to decision making that they didn't score them the last day. It was just very sort of weak finishing, and even missing a penalty there at the end. I mean, that kind of typifies it. But I'd imagine you'd imagine they're doing enough right that results will start to fall for them. Certainly on every inch of the form guide suggests they should beat Dublin in Croke Park. I mean, they beat them quite well in the group game last year, and Dublin look to have deteriorated based on the evidence of this year's league. So I'd be surprised if they don't pull out a result in that game. Yeah, well, they've got Mayo and Castlebar on Sunday. And speaking of Dublin, Peter, they go to Roscommon this weekend in Hyde Park. The Rossies probably one of the form teams, if not the form team in the country. They've pulled out some great results in the last couple of weeks. Mark Dowd is doing a really good job there in his first year as manager. And if they win at the weekend, their status is certainly secure, and they could maybe even look at making a league final. How do you see that one shaping up? Because Dublin under pressure, as you said, to get a result as well. And you think back to the very first game where they lost against Kerry, where they had the game won. So they should rightly feel maybe that they should be sitting top of Division 1 at the minute. I've been saying for quite a time now about the
the quality of their forward line, and that's at the minute without the St. Bridget's players and 2 or 3 really strong players to come back into the fold. So they're moving really well. I wouldn't say that they're certainly to win this game. The fact that they're in 6 points, I think that they're safe enough. And at this stage of the league, often you find that when teams are comfortable, not overly perturbed whether or not they make it to a league final or not, that if they take their eye off the ball slightly, that they can be nipped. And in this case, they're going to be facing a Dublin team who need the points, who are bound to be hungry. They will take some solace from, even though they lost against Kerry, that they were in the game and they played much better against Kerry than they did against Monaghan. So Dublin are a danger, and very similar to Armagh and Mayo, whereby you'd be expecting Mayo, the way they're playing at the minute, to win that game. But certainly the greater need is with Armagh. So I would say this could be a close enough call. But again, how many times have you hear pundits on about the kick-out battle? You feel if Mayo gain supremacy in the midfield quarter, that they have the forwards to really go out and really hurt Dublin.
The Dubs might have Conor Callaghan absent this weekend. I think he's got a hamstring problem. How big a blow might that be, Conor? Because he's been the standout player really for them in the last couple of weeks.
Well, he got them over the line really against Monaghan, so they could conceivably have no points at all if he hadn't been involved that day. Yeah, I mean, that would be a major blow because they're struggling for other forwards to step up. Yeah, they go to Hyde Park. I mean, I suppose there is still a residue of respect for Dublin where you can't quite write them off entirely. You're still kind of waiting for them to catch wing a bit and try and find form or plug into the rules as they exist presently. But they're sort of stillborn this season. It's not really working. The Kerry Dublin game, it sounded very listless. I don't want to flaunt my privilege here, but I happen to be watching Galway Roscommon, which I don't want to taunt the Rossies here because they all missed it. But I happen to be one of the few people in the country not in Salt Hill to watch that. So I'm glad I was watching that rather than Dublin Kerry. It sounded a dismal enough game, to be honest. But
well, there was only 6 points in it in the end, wasn't there? And they got a late score to put a gloss on it.
It felt like a more one-sided 6-point game than you'd imagine. I know Dublin got a flurry of scores late on with a late goal to bring it back to a 3-point game, but and then Kerry upped the gears again with the 2-pointer.
And Roscommon will surely take a lot of momentum from that comeback against Galway. I know they had the wind obviously in the second half, but still it was 13 points at one stage, I think, wasn't it?
It was 13, I think it drifted out to. It was a strange sort of a game. Roscommon, we're seeing this a lot, of course, since the new rules, the teams are choosing to play against the wind. Roscommon won the toss and they played against the wind, and it looked like a very wise decision early because Galway were struggling after 15 minutes. I think Roscommon were still leading 2-1, so they'd failed to take advantage of it completely. And then Galway got a bit of a spurt toward the last 20 minutes of the first half, and they put up a few 2-pointers. Liam O'Conneilla scored a couple and Tierney got one. And then the third quarter, Galway played really well, and it looked like, oddly enough, the wind seemed to slightly die down in the second half. So it may have backfired on Roscommon. But Galway were holding the lead and they even briefly extended it, and it looked like Roscommon weren't going to mount that charge. But then it came. There was a key moment when Rob Finnerty, who didn't have as good a game this time as he did in Armagh, he took a shot and it was easily telegraphed and was blocked down. And Roscommon came up the field. I think Craig got a 2-pointer. Yeah, the momentum seemed to swing on that.
Well, momentum's the word around Roscommon right now because they pulled off a couple of good results on the back of some difficult situations in some of those games as well. That game at Hyde Park on Sunday afternoon, and you mentioned Galway there. Just looking back at Donegal Galway last year, Peter, if we remember that one with the wind and Salt Hill as well, it was 17-0 I think at one stage to Galway, 17-1 at half time. They beat Donegal in that game. They meet again this weekend in Ballyshannon. From a Donegal point of view, Peter, do they go for the league from here, do you think? They're 4 from 4, or do they maybe try and work the rest of the panel now for the rest of it, or how do you think Jim McGuinness will approach it?
Well, the sound bites would indicate that they are going to go for it, that there is a 2-week break now before or after the National League. So if they did get to that, they would have a bit of time to prepare for a championship, which wasn't the case last year. So that very much determines how well they'll do for the remainder of the league. This time last year, a few teams benefited, Tyrone included, from the fact that Donegal were sitting pretty. This time round, I think they will. I don't think they'll take the foot off the pedal, and at the minute they're playing a really solid style of football. It's very much possession based. It's a ball running game, very little kick passing in it, and their movement is slick, their teamwork is slick, and they have their big men across the middle, McGee, Langan, McFadden, all brilliant ball winners there, and then you have your fast runners coming off them, and they're hurting teams. So if they continue on it, I think they will continue in that form. And Jim is blooding a few younger lads into the team as well. McCall, and they've a few of the Kiar Shannon and Turley Kiar, Kevin Muldoon is on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised to see all these lads getting a bit of game time prior to championship, because I think they will have a stronger panel overall possibly for the championship this year compared to next year. So they're in rude health at the minute.
Galway maybe less so. They need points, as you were saying earlier on, Peter. We talked to you after they played Mayo in their first match, and you mentioned the list of absentees that they had at that stage. They have got a few of those bodies back. Now, Shane Walsh didn't feature last weekend, I don't think, again, but they have got a few bodies back, yet they, again, no more than Armagh that we mentioned earlier on, maybe haven't picked up as many points as they would have liked at this stage.
Yeah, Pádraig Joyce will be scratching his head a wee bit like Kieran McGeeney, because for long periods of the league, for long periods of different games, they've been playing really well, and the youngsters that they've brought in have stood up to the plate, and their performance against Kerry, their second half performance against Kerry, has probably been the best 35 minutes in the league to date. So there's a lot to be happy with, but after saying that, they're sitting on 3 points. They lose this weekend, and they're in serious trouble. And from the very first game to last week, the reason for the downfall against Mayo was their inability to win their own kickout. And guess what? They, with such a healthy lead against Roscommon, that's what let them down in the second half. Roscommon pummeled them in terms of winning the Galway kickout in the second half. I think at one stage it might have been 7 in a row. So that was a platform on their victory. Now they're coming to play a Donegal team who are very good on pressing opposition kickouts, who have big men across the middle. So I suppose that's the challenge facing Galway. If they can break even there, then they have a chance. But it's going to be a very tough assignment for Pádraig Joyce's men up in Ballyshannon, I believe.
Yeah, and they have a great record in Ballyshannon, Donegal as well. I don't think they've lost there since 2009 at Father Tierney Park. Kerry Monaghan then this weekend as well, lads. That's on Sunday afternoon. Kerry onto 7 points now. They look in reasonable enough shape, Conor. Would they be happy enough with where they're at right now, do you think?
I think so, yeah. There's a sense that the league is not really a priority for Kerry this year. It's probably never a priority for them.
But yet Jack O'Connor has done, is it 5 doubles?
He's done 5 doubles. So he's never won the championship unaccompanied by the league. But I don't know if he's particularly concerned by that. It is notable. I think Kerry have never, particularly in post All-Ireland winning years, I don't think Kerry have won the league. I think I totted up after winning the All-Ireland since I think 1982.
Okay.
Which is not a year they want to replicate in its entirety, obviously. But I suspect they're just, the league is pretty low down on their list of priorities this year. But they're managing it well, and they're kind of, I presume they'll win this weekend against the Monaghan team who are really struggling, and that'll be enough for them. Yeah,
like you mentioned it already, Peter. Monaghan look like they're heading for Division 2. Like, what will they be? Obviously, they want to get points on the board, but what do you think they'll be looking for beyond that over the next couple of weeks now as they look ahead to the championship as well?
Yes, it's performances and trying to blood a number of these younger lads into the setup, and it's been tough for Gabriel Bannigan. no Darren Hughes, no Kieran Hughes, no Conor McCarthy. Rory Bagan was missing last week. So they had the Scotstown problem and a few older men who have stepped down. So for them, and again, it's no shame when you look at Division 1, there's going to be 2 decent teams is going to be relegated. That's the way it is. I think Tyrone went down last year on 7 points maybe.
Yep.
So it's about performances, and he'll be disappointed that the game was done and dusted last week against Mayo, a home performance, very unlike Monaghan, and that will disappoint him. But it's about blooding players and bringing men through. Very difficult assignment going down to Kerry. Kerry at times in the league when they're playing away, like they did up in Donegal, they may rest 1 or 2 players. But when they're playing in front of their home supporters, there's demands being placed on them. There's high expectations whenever Kerry play at home. So I can't see Kerry taking the foot off the gas here. So it could be an uncomfortable afternoon for the Monaghan men on Sunday.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, this was the year many people had presumed Monaghan might have last year, the first year post McManus and new management and all the rest, and yet they had a pretty good 2025. Got promoted, won Division 2 in great style, and then got to an All-Ireland quarter-final. But with Scottstown winning Ulster, a great thing for Scottstown, it appears to have really damaged Monaghan's prospects.
Yeah, it's been a tough run for them.
It's been compounding other issues.
And to concede 230 on
it's
home
very
turf
ugly
last weekend.
line,
Yeah,
I mean that was the way amid Kobe mania. I suppose it was worth noting that he came on against a team who were a beaten docket. Really, at that stage.
Why don't we turn to Division 2, Peter? Because your own Tyrone losing out last weekend.
You can move on to Division 3 if you want, Cathal. I'm not very upset.
Like Tyrone, is there a chance of promotion now gone, do you think, or what's going to happen over the few weeks?
Definitely the chance of promotion are gone. When you look at Cork are on 8, Meath and Derry on 6, and I can't see 2 of those 3 will definitely go through at this stage. They have to win against Offaly, otherwise they could be in serious relegation trouble. If they beat Offaly, it's them on 5 points, and you have to look at Cavan and Kildare could be in trouble. But look, from a Tyrone perspective, a few people getting carried away with the result. The fact of the matter, Tyrone had the winning of the game in their hands. They had a decent first half, and with 10-15 minutes to go, they were very much in the game with strong breeze. What's worrying from Malachi's point of view, of the 4 games that played to date, going into the last 7 or 8 minutes, in 3 of those games, it was up for grabs. And in those 3 games, they didn't see the game out. They didn't win it. And that's very disappointing from a number of counts. I would say confidence among the squad, looked to be very low in the second half on Sunday. There was one example which I thought summed up the lack of confidence in each other, with about 15 minutes to go, Tyrone playing with gale force breeze. We were only 2 or 3 points down, still very much in the game, and with a sideline free about 65 yards out, and instead of working it short, they called up Niall Morgan. Now, I would say on the conditions, the heavy underfoot conditions, it would have been a miraculous kick for Niall to have scored it. But number one, they felt the need to call him up, waste a minute or two, and not have the confidence to try and work it short and to make sure and kick it dead or to get a score. So things could be much better. After saying that, I don't think people give Louth the credit that they deserve. They are Leinster champions, and if Tyrone was to go down to play any other team in Leinster that were the Leinster champions, it wouldn't be such a shock that they got beat. So under their third manager, they played well under Mickey. They obviously played very well under Jerry Brennan, and now they're playing well under Horse. So it tells you there's some very good players there, some excellent players there, and those players came to the fore once again. Craig Lennon, Mulroy, Grimes. So they have a good team, and a lot of teams will find it difficult to beat them. But from a Tyrone perspective, there's a bit of soul searching required, and they need to start playing better as a team.
Yeah, and the confidence point is an interesting one, Peter, because you would have assumed, given Tyrone went down from Division 1 on 7 points last year, that they'd have been quite strong in Division 2 this year, and therefore they would have the confidence to go and get results against so-called weaker teams that will be in Division 1. It hasn't quite happened. What would you put it down to?
Well, maybe there was a feeling, and maybe a lot of our supporters were saying it's a case of straight back down and back up again, because we had some good wins in Division 1 at the end of the year, and we got to an All-Ireland semi-final. So, and put it up to Kerry for 45, 50 minutes. So that's, you wouldn't say, is Division 2 form. So there was probably a feeling that this will be a case of going down, coming straight back up again. But maybe a few players and the team are realising that maybe they're not as good as they think they are, and that you can't take any teams for granted, and they're finding that out the hard way.
Yeah, it's looking difficult for them right now. At the top end of the table, big game this weekend between Derry and Cork. Cork have been in many ways the story of Division 2 so far, and that win over Meath last weekend, Conor, was a huge one, both obviously for the 2 points, but I thought the manner of the victory as well, the players diving in on the ball, getting those blocks in, particularly in the second half when Meath were coming back. The very last play of the game actually worked out like that as well. Cork looked to be in a very, very good spot, and they've got a pretty good support behind them now as well. Yeah,
they're coming back. I mean, Páirc Rinn seemed to be hopping there atmospherically, and it seemed to be a really good decision to move the game there, because they can get lost in Páirc Queef sometimes, even in double headers, because the hurling crowd are very they're uniformly devoted to the hurling. They don't really migrate across. They had been going under the radar somewhat, Cork. I know we have a regular correspondent here who's always complaining that we don't mention Cork whenever they maybe Rory O'Neill under a pseudonym, who knows. But I think the nature of their win over Offaly seemed to John Cleary was complaining about the manner of the second half performance, and that seemed to take some of the hype away before they played Meath the last day. I suppose Louth's win over Tyrone underlines what a good win, that away win that was in round 2 for Cork.
Fair point, yeah.
They've done a huge amount here, and that's a huge win over Meath, because it gives them the head-to-head advantage there, which will which could be crucial come the end, because there's still a lot up for grabs here. I've a hunch that Derry, they're a very streaky team, and they've turned in a positive streak now, and I suspect they're going to win what games they have left. Now, I know Cork,
including this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who knows? I mean, we'll see. But that's just my sense of it, that they have the strongest body of work behind them, and now that they have momentum and they're moving in the right direction, I suspect they'll go up, and it looks like Cork will go up with them now. That Cork have got the edge on Meath, and Meath might get pushed out. But yeah, it's been a impressive league campaign for Cork.
Yeah,
they've been building gradually under Cleary and Kevin Walsh there for a couple of years, and now they seem to be making a step up here.
Yeah. Peter, what do you think? Derry have picked up some good results in the last couple of weeks, in fairness to them. Can they do it this weekend?
Yeah, I think they will. I fancy them from the start, and there has been steady progress with them moving forward. Again, they appear a very united front now. They're set patterns to their play moving forward, and they're starting to hurt the opposition in terms of scores. So they're in a very good place. I think from a Cork perspective, they don't have Ian Maguire coming up to this game, and there's talk that he could actually be facing a 2-match suspension. If that is the case, he's one of their leaders, massive ball winner in the middle of the pitch, and a serious presence driving forward. So despite the fact of with Chris Ogue, Jones and Mark Cronin in particular playing really well, they need a good supply of ball coming in. So with Maguire not there, it's very much advantage Derry. But look, with Cork, for a few years now, I've been saying the potential, and you're waiting, and then the flatter to deceive, or they've proved to be very inconsistent. This year's league campaign, there's a real steadiness, a real, togetherness about them and fairness, and they're going to be a hard team beat. So, but this will be a massive test for them, and if they can go up to Derry and get 2 points, they will be playing really well.
Yeah, and just a word before we finish, Peter, on our live television match this weekend on Saturday night. It's from Newbridge, Kildare against Meath. Meath still played pretty well against Cork the last day, particularly when they were driving at them in the second half, and they'll still feel that they're right in the mix to get promotion. Can they get one over on Kildare?
Absolutely. I think this is going to be a close one, Cathal, but this is a massive game in my opinion from a Kildare point of view, because after a few games, everyone looking well, and you're thinking the possibility of promotion. If Kildare were to lose this game, and they're playing a very strong Meath team, if they're to lose this and Cavan beat Louth, that leaves Kildare second from bottom. They've already played the bottom three teams. They've only the strongest teams left. So this is massive. This is a must-win game from a Kildare point of view, and I think there'll be a real edge to it. And if Meath underestimate them in any way, they could be in for a surprise. So it's a big one. What do they have to do to prevent Meath from winning? They have to prevent Meath from getting 2 pointers. They have so many players who can score from distance, and there's nobody kicks the 2 pointers better than the Meath men. So if they can nullify that threat, then Kildare are in with a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think Kildare are looking over their shoulder now, because they beat Offaly in the second game. They had 3 points after 2 matches, and it was all looking hunky dory. But that Cavan game, we felt that was a big one, because that was going to be a, Cavan have been very competitive in their other games, aside from the Tyrone game, which they never play well in. But then they pulled out a win there, and Dermot McCabe was saying, they had been pushing for that, and they hadn't done much. They had done a lot right in other games and were narrowly edged out. So it wasn't that surprising that Cavan turned them over in Kingspan Breffni, and Cavan still have to play Offaly, which is a game on form they're likely to win. You'd imagine that would push them above Kildare if Kildare can muster any more points. So yeah, it's a big game now. Obviously, they're secure for Sam Maguire this year, as we know, because of the Tailteann. But going back to Division 3 will be a setback for them. So every game is crucial from now on, which is it'd be a bit of a shame for Kildare, because they were looking upwards after a couple of rounds of the league, and now they're kind of casting glances the other way.
Yep, well, you can catch that game live on RTÉ2 television from Newbridge this Saturday night. That's it for our football section. Peter, thanks a million for joining us. We'll be back with Michael Duignan to talk hurling in just a second.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over.
Okay, time to talk hurling now, and glad to say that we have Michael Duignan with us. Michael, how are you keeping?
Yeah, great. Carl, can't complain.
Good to have you with us, Michael. Things are running along quickly, aren't they? Are teams kind of taking shape now? The championship isn't that far away.
No, it's not. I suppose it's been a longish couple of months. I suppose the weather's been so bad, and the matches have been great, I suppose, in a way that something to look forward to at the weekends, because it's been miserable. I think everyone has been a bit down and out. But look, I suppose looking at ourselves, I suppose we've an awful lot of injuries in Offaly at the minute, and I think maybe a lot of counties between Fitzgibbon, Sigerson in football, injuries. A lot of players have been missing, but I think slowly but surely you can see across the country maybe players getting back and teams getting back to close to full strength. I think that's what, over the next 2 or 3 matches in the league, I think that's what you'll see teams trying to do, is to get maybe as close to their championship team on the field at some stage. And as you say, it's not that far away. It's we're into March next week, and the 18th of April. So
yeah, you're looking at
7 or 8 weeks away.
Big games that weekend. Has it been a good experience, you think, Division 1A for Offaly? Obviously, it's been tough on the pitch, but the experience that they've gained, will that stand them in good stead, do you think, maybe in the Leinster Championship?
I think so. Look, it's where you want to be, and I suppose if people are disappointed maybe and a bit frustrated when you're not winning matches, and that's fair enough. But if you take like 4 or 5 years ago, we were in the Christie Ring, we were in sort of Division 2, and we had to make our way up, and it's been a big learning curve. But considering the amount of players we've been out, have been missing, I think they've done quite well, apart from the Tipperary game where it was a fair scoreline. But against Waterford, Kilkenny, and even last Sunday against Galway, the end scoreline, I think there was 10 points in it or whatever. But Offaly had a few goal chances and they were reasonably competitive. But certainly for a lot of the young players that have come in, and because we've had so many injuries, I think a lot of those players got maybe more game time than they would have got otherwise. So I think it definitely will stand to them. And I think look, it's not getting any easier. Limerick this week, and then bit of a break then for a couple of weeks before we go to Cork for the last match. So huge matches, but it is exposing the lads to the pace of that game, the power, the physicality, and you're playing in very heavy conditions, which wouldn't necessarily suit us that well either. So look, you're hoping it'll all help come the 18th when Dublin come to Tullamore. I suppose that is the focus, and it probably has been, to be fair, since last year's championship. Like, it's a big year. Staying up in Leinster last year was huge. I suppose trying to move on from that and possibly win a couple of matches this year will be the aim.
Yeah, they look at that as achievable. Just on the point you make there, Michael, about goal chances, particularly against Waterford as well. Offaly had quite a few goal chances that they didn't convert. What do you put it down to?
Maybe a little bit over anxious. I don't know. Like last Sunday, we could have got 5. That'd be stretching it, but there was definitely 3 to 4 really good chances, and 2 of them were very clear cut, and they weren't taken. So bit of inexperience, little bit anxious, maybe not just really having that confidence yet, maybe at that level. So anyway, we have I have someone in the house here that missed a chance or two.
You can't say
too much bad about him, but he got a few points last week anyway. But he had a goal to hit the side net, and he had a good chance against Waterford as well. Adam had a great chance against Waterford that he normally stick away. Interestingly enough, with Duignan and Donegal Shirley, 2 of the other more under 20s coming up, they had great chances. So last week, Dan Burke had a chance. All the young lads. So it's great to be talking about them creating those chances at least, because we've only scored the 1 goal in the league against Tip. So that is something I suppose that the lads will be working on. And with Seamus Callanan in the backroom team, you couldn't have a better man. So hopefully, his training, and when we get the full team back, Charlie Mitchell has been missing all during the league, and if he gets back, he'll be a huge addition up front as well.
He had a particularly good second half, Brian, I thought, in the game.
Yeah, he did well. Yeah, he's been working away hard. A little bit frustrating, I'd say, with his form. He was okay against Tip as well, but a little bit in and out. But I suppose another factor is we're training hard, and because of the injuries, we're probably playing the same 10 or 12 or 13 lads every game. We're not rotating as much, and it is hard going this time of the year. So, as I say, look, he's going well enough. Like a lot of the lads, without maybe hitting top gear yet. I suppose, look, last year we were in 1B, but we were probably very good in the league up until the league final, and Waterford got a run on us, and then we finished very strongly that day. And I suppose maybe we were a little bit flat in the championship. So I'd say, look, we're probably training very hard and trying to keep a bit in the tank, and that little bit, it's a balancing act. You don't want to be losing every match either, but we always knew it was going to be a huge step up to Division 1A. And look, it's odds on we're going to go back down to 1B, but 1B is very good standard as well. So it's not the end of the world in terms of building for the future. Yeah.
As you said, Michael, Limerick, the opposition this weekend, Conor, looked like they were back to their best. Would it be fair to say last weekend with that win over Tip?
Yeah, it was a bit of a jam squib now, I have to say, as a contest. But yeah, Limerick were hugely impressive. It was like a game from maybe 3 years ago. Some of the newer players that have emerged really took a starring role. Aidan O'Connor, Shane O'Brien, their movement, the way they moved the ball was just incredibly impressive, and they just dominated that middle third. And Tip, you wonder what the story was there, because Tip were so overwhelmed in the game that it was basically over after 20 minutes, and then things seemed to get away from them, and they rallied a bit in the second half. They obviously put up a better show with 14 men, and Noel McGrath had a particularly good game, but it was shooting practice, a lot of it for Limerick.
Like 36 points, Michael, is a fair score this time of year.
It was a massive performance. That's why you saw hints of it against Kilkenny as well the last day. But just to pick up on Conor there, I think I'd agree. Matthew Fitzgerald, corner back, like he's been around. Colin Coughlin's been around a few years. Adam English, Cathal O'Neill, like they're established, but not maybe really that well established. But they're going to be key players. Aidan O'Connor was unbelievable in the first half, in particular. Like he shot the lights out, playing that sort of free 11 role. We saw Owen Cody doing it, to great effect in a couple of league matches so far this year as well for Kilkenny. But when you see the likes of maybe Jeremy Burns coming on as a sub, Tom Morrissey, like they didn't look like lads to me that want to give up the jersey that easily either. But they could be. That could be their role. You could have Limerick with maybe 4 or 5 All-Stars on the bench this year for the come championship, which I suppose that level of competition is what John Kiley will want. He'll want, and it, as I say, like the lads I mentioned, there would have been on any county team over the last 3 or 4 years. Cathal O'Neill has been exceptional, but he had to play a part role here and there over the last number of years. Adam English, Colin Coughlin, but will they start, or will the other lads force their way back in? But they were absolutely brilliant. Shane O'Brien, he's been around and talked about for a number of years, but he was just unmarkable. The power of the man is incredible. And look, from Tip's point of view, they were missing a few players. And you'd wonder, there have been down quite a few players during the league, and it's hard to win in All-Ireland and come back the following year. We've seen that. Bar the great Kilkenny team, that great Limerick team, most teams that win in All-Ireland, they have a bit of a dip the year after because of obviously the celebrating and everything else, but there's also that maybe lack of hunger a little bit. But interestingly, I think I'd agree with Noel McGrath, who's it's hard to believe he played in 2009 in Ireland final. I think we talked about the last day. And like to score 6 points from play in such a competitive match and last out the game so well. So he didn't look like a lad that's thrown in the towel, and I suppose they'll be looking to that sort of leadership, getting a few other lads back into the team. Jason Ford, John McGrath, Robert Doyle is a key player now as well. Owen Connolly's playing at 6, he'll probably revert to 3. So Tip maybe not showing a full hand, but I think Limerick sent out a very, very strong message that they're in serious shape.
Yeah, and Tip have a bit of a break now. Big game at Pearse Stadium this weekend. Galway, Waterford. Looks like the loser of this one, Michael, is going to be in real trouble. I suppose we've given Galway quite a bit of credit for the performances that they put in so far this year, but they really need to get a result this weekend, don't they?
They do, and I suppose, look, in Pearse Stadium, they're hard to beat. I have to say that, like, they've blooded quite a few new players. I don't know if you've seen the matches, but Jason Rabbit in particular has been hugely impressive. He looks like Joe, but he's a way better hurler. Joe won't make me say that. Joe wasn't too bad. Joe wasn't too bad either. But this lad has great skill for a big man. He's great hands. He's very strong. I'm not sure he's even 20 years of age yet. He played with Athenry College last year, and Evan Nyland the same. Evan Nyland, I'd say the conditions don't suit him. He's a bit lighter, but he's very, very game. His work rate is hugely impressive. And the spine of their team, Killian Trayers has come in there full back, releasing Dahi Burke. I think Dahi Burke at 6, because he's so athletic. He plays midfield, obviously, for Corofin and football, or has done. I'm not sure he's still playing. But he has a great eye for getting forward and creating the overlap. And Pádraig Mannion playing as well as ever. Cathal Mannion very good again. So like they are going well. But so are Waterford. I think Waterford probably at the start of the league, people were saying they're missing so many players, but they've got 4 points on the board. They're playing with great spirit. They were probably very unlucky to lose out, not even to get a draw last Sunday, the way the game unfolded with the late Kilkenny point. So it is an interesting one, a hard enough one to call, I think, actually, because there's so much on the line. But Galway at home, they are hard to beat. It is a very difficult place to go. The wind and rain is always there, and maybe Galway just been used to that a little bit better might suit them. Yeah,
neither team obviously will want to get relegated. Waterford, it looked like Conor they'd found something in the last couple of weeks, particularly that win over Limerick, which came off the back of that hammering against Cork. So they have picked up a little bit of form. Yeah,
after week 1, you would have said they were going down very quickly. Yeah, it was a very meek kind of performance. But then they got a big reaction against Limerick, possibly helped by the fact that Limerick were playing their first game, but they took advantage and got a big win. And then were very unlucky the last day. That result was almost the difference between the turnaround late in injury time was the difference between Kilkenny being sucked into a relegation battle and Waterford being basically free of it. So now they're in it again, and this is potentially a head-to-head battle, or it's been shaping up that way to see who will survive. Yeah, and Waterford have been playing particularly well. I thought Galway in of the 3 games they played so far, I thought the game last week in Birr was probably their least impressive display, in the sense that early in the second half when Cathal Mullaney scored that goal and they had a massive gale behind them, I think, for the rest of the game, it looked like they were going to, you thought they might canter away, and the game became competitive again. I think Offaly might have brought it down to 4
Well, they
points.
They got a goal and a point, didn't they, in the last?
They got a goal and a point to put
well.
a glass in the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Conor Whelan came on, and you know, that was his first appearance, I think, of the year. So he came on and got a late goal and a point, and that put a glass in the scoreboard that I think probably wasn't really there overall. But other than that, they've been impressive, and you know, they've blooded a lot of young players. We saw Rory Burke the first day against Tip, and he looked really good. He didn't play the last day. You know, because there had been a sense with Galway that they'd been treading water for a couple of years, that they were still going, they were kind of still relying on the veterans of 2017-18 and, you know, with steadily diminishing returns. But they've found an infusion of players this year from recent...
Well, they've had that underage success, haven't they? Yeah.
They had underage success. They had a glut of it in the late 2010s and didn't really get as much from it as you would have imagined. And it's actually last year's under-20 team who I think blew a game against Dublin with a mountain of wides in a Leinster semi-final. That's produced a good few players, and Rabbit has come through there, and Rory Burke has come through there, and I think Trayers might have. But yeah, so they have a group of players coming. You know, the Galway Waterford record is a strange one over the years in Championship. I mean, I think Waterford have won pretty much every game apart from the most important game they ever played, which was their only All-Ireland final in 2017. And that year, it was a game against Waterford in the league that really turned around Galway's fortunes. I think they were losing by about 10 points and they had a massive burst in the last quarter and they won the game. So with the Salt Hill factor, you'd imagine you'd give them the slight nod to get the win, given how they've been playing.
Well, I'd say it'll be tight this weekend.
Yeah.
The other one then in 1A, Michael, is Kilkenny and Cork. Cork back after a bit of a break. They'll have had a good block of training, you'd imagine, over the last couple of weeks. We've just mentioned there that Kilkenny maybe a tad fortunate, but at the same time, they dug it out against Waterford last weekend. That was a big 2 points to them, and they still do have a couple of key guys to come back in.
Yeah, well, you know, you're always going to get that with Kilkenny, like that massive work rate. You know, I know the Offaly lads commented after the league match down there, like, you know, the intensity of it is incredible. Like, regardless of who's on the field, I see Liam Sheedy's comment about the forwards, lacking a couple of forwards, has got a good bit of attention during the week. Cian Kenny was talking about it as well, and that they love these little bits of, every county loves these little bits, especially a tip man getting on to Kilkenny. So they love that down there this week. But if you think about it, like, they are down Adrian Mullen and TJ, right? TJ's getting on, but if TJ comes in, and I'd say the plan this year, because they've started to play Owen Cody at 11 primarily all the time, so it'll be TJ at 14, Cody at 11, Mullen at 10, John Donnelly will come back in, Billy Ryan is missing, Mossy Kyogan is there in the other corner. That's not a bad forward line. It's a very good forward line.
When you say it like that, yeah.
Well, Adrian Mullen is 5 or 6 point a game man, usually. Owen Cody is in the form of his life. TJ will score the frees. I think that's been an issue. I think that's going to be maybe a little bit of an issue with Cork as well, getting the 9 out of 10 free taker. Alan Connolly's been tried. Darragh Fitzgibbon, like against Tip, they won the game well in the end, but they missed, you know, they looked a little bit unsure of who was taking the frees, who was taking the long ones, who was taking the short ones. Declan Dalton was on the field, he didn't take them. They'll have to figure that out come Championship, because if you get 8 or 9 frees, you have to be scoring them. And, you know, Gillan and Dermot Burns have done it over the years. But, you know, I think Cork have been very, very impressive. Playing in Cork, in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, is a massive help, because the pitch is in such fantastic condition. It's like Croke Park. Every other pitch in Ireland, in fairness, after the weather, they're in great nick, but they are heavy. So it's a different game. So you saw Cork going to Galway, a completely different game than when they're playing in Cork. And I think it'll be maybe a lot more dour and low scoring than you'd imagine between those two teams. I think it'll be hard hitting and it'll be competitive. Because Kilkenny are just that. Like, no matter who they play, league or championship, every time they go out, they're thereabouts, you know. And I'd expect more of the same. But Cork have been in great form. They have a lot of lads fighting for positions. They have a lot of strength and depth on the panel, and they're in great form. But I wouldn't be overly surprised if Kilkenny caused a surprise.
Okay.
on Sunday, because just their home record, and maybe the needs be, they need a win to stay in contention to win the league, and that's the way they think as a rule. They want to win. Obviously, every team wants to win every match, but I just think they play to a certain style, and it could be tough. But look, having said that, Cork can blow you away in 10 minutes, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, will Cork want to be in a league final, do you think, Michael, just as the if you like, the rhythm of the season? I think the league final is at the start of April, isn't it? And then they play Tip in that first championship match on the 19th of April. So from a Ben O'Connor point of view, would a league final fit nicely into the calendar, or would it be something of a hindrance, do you think?
I think they'll drive on, Carl, to be honest with you. I don't think you can think like that. It is a tricky one. There's no doubt about it. When we look back in the crystal ball that we don't have now, come the summer, you can say it was a good thing or a bad thing. Like we saw Kilkenny when they were going really well in the past. They won plenty of leagues. You saw Limerick very competitive in most of them. Then years they didn't win the league, maybe didn't. You can make it, you can twist it and turn it. I just think Ben O'Connor's his first year. I think he's been obviously very bullish in his interviews about loads of different things. You might agree with some and disagree with others, but he's not afraid to give his opinion, and I think he's laid down a marker. So I don't think he can just back off now. So as you say, look, sometimes you can say, does a team train very hard the week of the match? It takes a little bit out of the legs. I thought maybe that was a factor with Tip last week. Had they trained really hard in the build up, can take it out of you. Yeah. But no, I'd expect Cork to drive on and try to make a league final.
Yeah.
The league is a predictor for the championship. I mean, as Michael said, you can find any evidence you want if you look back. I think it was 2022 when practically everyone who had a good league then sort of stank out the place in championship, and everyone who phoned in the league did well in championship. I think that was the year Waterford beat Cork in a league final, and then they were gone, and Liam Cahill was gone a couple of months later or whatever. You get the impression from Ben O'Connor's demeanour and his interviews that he doesn't really think in those terms. He just seems to be concentrating on winning every game possible. Any game that's in front of them, really. But it's on form, you'd imagine they should be favourites this weekend. I know.
Should be another decent game. Decent game. Just to touch on 1B as well, lads. Clare, Carlow, Antrim, Dublin this weekend as well. Antrim have found themselves a bit of form. And just, Michael, maybe your thoughts on Kildare, because they've competed really, really well in 1B so far this year, and they pushed Clare all the way last weekend.
They've improved massively from the first game. Dublin, the first game, I think they Dublin gave them a bit of a hiding the first day out. But I think they found their feet big time. And that was a strongish Clare team. I think Tony Kelly got 8 from play. Which, just shows you he's at the peak of his power still. But Kildare have made massive strides. Interestingly, I heard Brian Dowling's comments about the supporters coming out to, that Clare outnumbered them, which is disappointing for them. I think there's Kildare people need to get out and get behind the team. No more than in all our counties. Like the league crowds have been very good. We're getting a great following at our matches. Great crowd in Burr last Sunday again. But that was interesting. But they do deserve the support. And obviously a tough week in Kildare with that terrible tragedy. The Kildare minor manager, Brian Frisbee, and his wife killed in a car crash last weekend on Waterford. Or the Naas minor manager, his 2 sons playing with Naas, and just pass on our condolences to everybody in Naas. J.R. Angler, hurling chairman there yesterday, and it's terrible. It's put an awful dampener on the town. The lads play hurling for Naas, and Brian was a coach in the club, a very well respected coach in the club, and they play football with Eadstown out the road from Naas. I used to live in Naas, so I know the scene well up there. So terrible week. I suppose it puts things in perspective as well. But anyway, just pass on our condolences to the families. But so look, Kildare going well, and they should be well able to stay up. And I think, look, the result that really caught my eye last weekend in 1B, that was a good performance. But Antrim's win was huge. They had been going so badly. I thought, really Kildare had a great chance going up there, but they beat them double scores. And Pat Bennett over Carlow, who was obviously a sidekick of Davies for many years, the father of Stephen and Shane that played with Waterford, obviously great hurling man, who's in Carlow. And that was a massive, massive result for Antrim hurling, because everything has been so negative. And credit to Davy. He talked them up last week in the paper without being over the top. He just said, look, that they had a plan and that were sticking to it. And there has been huge criticism. So I think you have to give credit where credit is due. That was a big result for Antrim and possibly turned the corner for them for the year.
Yep, you're right there. That was a really impressive win for them. So that's the hurling action on the field this weekend. Just before you go, Michael, we thought we might get your thoughts as well on the GAA Congress that's taking place this weekend. Some of the motions that are grabbing the attention, and there'll also be an election for the president as well to succeed Charlotte Burns. But a couple of the motions that are gaining quite a bit of traction, probably the chief one amongst them is the extension to potentially the inter-county season, to push the All-Ireland finals out by a couple of weeks at the end of the season. This one is to and fro in terms of the momentum, in terms of which way it might go. What's your sense of it, having maybe talked to a few people around the country about it?
Yeah, Carl, I've been there myself as an Offaly delegate. I think it's an interesting one. I think the counties that think they're going to be worse affected by the bigger counties, the Galways, the Corks, the Kerrys, have come out very strongly to go against it. And obviously you can see where they're coming from. If those counties get to an All-Ireland semi-final or final, they're big counties, big dual counties, and they're going to come under pressure, just won't have enough weeks. I think there was sort of a feeling out there prior to that a lot of counties, and this is with the best of respect to everybody, including ourselves, that maybe you're not going to be that badly affected. You're not going to be in All-Ireland finals that often. And if you are, you'd work around it. That was the sort of early chat. But I think when people got into it and they look at the certainty of the split season and they look at, it's not perfect, but it's way better for players knowing early in the year what their, when their matches are on, what's happening. And I get the feeling that momentum has swung to leave things as they are. My concern would be, and it's because it's tied to that, it's tied to the All-Ireland finals, is that the pre-season competitions would go if the All-Irelands are moved into August. And I still think, and I know they've been traditionally huge, I just think the inter-county player is getting completely flogged in the early part of the year. The young lads are playing Fitzgibbon. I know the bigger counties have more players and they can rotate more, but for counties like ourselves that have limited panels, we're down about 20 odd lads between hurling and football injured throughout the whole league. 11, I think, hurlers, or 11 footballers and 10 hurlers. But it's been basically, and you're trying to play a Byrne Cup, Walsh Cup. You have lads you're trying to rest them for Fitzgibbon. And to be fair to those lads, ideal world you wouldn't be playing them at all. But we don't have the base and of players, and then you're coming into the leagues, you're playing matches week on week. We have a bit of a break after next Sunday, and then you're into the championship. So it's very condensed and it's very, very busy. Whereas an advantage to me would be, it would leave a couple of weeks in the calendar to stretch out, leave a little bit more gaps between matches. And I think also, from a promotional point of view, the extra few weeks would help obviously greatly as well, and would stretch our biggest matches into the month of August. So it's not a simple one, because we know, I think we need 14 weeks here to play our championships, and we have a lot of dual players in the county, and we allow a week extra for a replay in our finals. Every other match, including semi-finals, is winner on the day, so you don't have much scope.
It is very tight, isn't it?
It is tight, but when you're not involved, if you're not in an Ireland semi-final or final, you can start your championship. I don't think the championships in Galway started until August last year, and they were out of the. I can be corrected in this, and Paul Bellew will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Galway were out of the championship quite a few weeks before the club championship started. So you have to be. I think you'll definitely need a plan A and a plan B if you do qualify. But I know Paul has been saying dual players would probably be gone, and that's something that, look, at club level, that's not sustainable for most clubs, especially small country clubs. So my feeling is it'll be left as it is, and and I just think we need to look then at the balance between inter-county and club in terms of the county player. Everyone says the 2% or 98% of the players are club players. They're not. 100% of the players are. The county players are playing an awful lot more matches than the club players, and there's a lot. I know there's a lot of work going into injury profiles of all these players, but it is certainly becoming a big issue right across the country. I think Cork footballers only had 24 players tagged out against us 2 weeks ago. 24 fit players.
Well, just on that, Michael, then, because another of the motions that's up for discussion this weekend is from Clontarf about players having to play a certain amount of games for their club to be eligible to play for their county the following season. I think it's 8 matches between league and championship at club level that they're looking that they might play so they can play for their county. What do you think about that in the context of what you just said about the demands on players?
Yeah. It's not practical from our point of view anyway, because like you take our county players, they're with the split season, they're not going to be, they won't play any league matches with the club, and they're back for the championship. But like our players will be dual players, so they'll have minimum of 5 hurling and 5 football championship matches. So they'll have 10 matches with. I know it's with now. We've Durrow and hurling and Ballinamere, or Ballinamere and hurling, Durrow and football, but we're the one club, one group of players. So they're going to get 9 or 10 matches with their clubs, if you like. But I just don't see how, Dublin might be able to do that by lads being released to play a few club matches or whatever. But I can't see how it can work in the inter-county scene. I spoke against it last year. I'm actually surprised that, like, if Dublin want to bring it in, if Noel wanted to examine it in Dublin, Noel McCaffrey is the one who's behind it. They might be able to make it work, but I don't see practically how. I think every county has to look at their parameters and their players and their setup, and allow for as many matches as you can within that grading. Now we might get, if we're out of the championship early, lads. I think last year our lads got back for 1 or 2 league matches at the end because we were out of the championship early. So that's the way the split season is. I can't see how you can put a figure on it. From an Offaly point of view, Michael, has the club league suffered as a result of the split season? Because that's some of the evidence that some counties will present, that county players are just off charts, off limits for the first 6 or 7 months of the year. Have the club league suffered in Offaly, would you say? I think they have. There's no doubt about it. Our own club here would be really struggling to field a team because we've 7 lads in with Offaly and we're a smallish club. So, last year I think I was involved with the team. We got a few lads back for the relegation match and we managed to win it. And I was asking lads to play maybe the week after they were just finished with Offaly. 3 or 4 of them came back and played. So it's not ideal. But I suppose that's the demands of an inter-county player. Like, they're training so much, they're playing the matches on top of each other. Where do you go and ask them to play league matches with their club in the middle of that as well? Like, it's just not feasible. Look, the league maybe was never massive in Offaly, to be honest with you, lads. We never had. I never played. I think I might have played 1 league match in me 15 years. Just one. One league match with my club. Okay. Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, but you were still, when you went back to, you had to be ready to be the main man for your club after coming back from the county. You know what I'm saying? All of us, like myself, Mark Mahoney, Hugh Rigney, we were all Rhinos. We had to come back, and the lads used to really up the trend at home before we came back, to be up to the level of us. But like, I don't know where the clamour for it has come from. Like, I know the club is everything, but the club championship is the most important thing, and you have all your county players then, and the league really is, to me, it's for the lads at home. They're training away. It's a few matches for them during the league, but look, in some counties I know they take it way more seriously. But we just, as I say, again, back to the pool of players. The size of club panels and county panels here, it to me, it's not a rule that can be brought in across the board. I think you have to look at it county to county. Okay. Something I had to give. I mean, in a sort of whack-a-mole calendar where if you solve one problem, you create a problem elsewhere. I mean, the club league was always going to be, in various places, was always going to be on the chopping block when you consider all the other competing interests. I mean, given that it's almost everywhere, it's dwarfed in importance by the club championship. I mean, people don't really remember who wins the club league in a county, I would imagine. So, it doesn't seem like it's a motion. I mean, I know a similar motion was brought last year. It's knocked down. It's been tweaked. I can't see it passing. On the other motion, there does appear to be momentum against it now at the minute. The club side of the equation would always say that it's not so much about when your county goes out of the championship. It's down to the certainty they would get and the certainty that they know the championship is starting at a certain point, so it's not contingent on how well the county does. Yeah, and it's so guys maybe can book a holiday or something like that or whatever during the course of the summer, Michael. Wouldn't that be the thing? No, it's been the players are really supportive of the split season. In general, there is issues, and there's always going to be issues in the GAA. we all know that we're long enough involved, but it does give great certainty. It does allow lads to have a life, to go on a holiday, to book around it, and it gives the fixture makers the opportunity, like our CCC at the moment, asking clubs, if you have anything on, if there's a wedding or if there's some major event, let us know and we'll tweak around it. It does allow that sort of freedom as well, and which is good. No, it took us an awful long time to come up with a solution to the way things were, and people might, look through the old-fashioned way and say it was great. It wasn't. It was very difficult as well. Something that I might like to see examined maybe is the possibility of a league match or two before Christmas again. But the problem there is you're back into training. It's not like again.
Where's the closed season? Then people probably would say to you, "When's the closed season?" I
know the closed season. I would say maybe the month of January.
Okay.
The middle of December to the end of January. I just think January is the weather is horrendous, and if you got two matches in October, November, you wouldn't have your maybe county champions players or whoever if they're gone on into provincials, but you would have everybody else. You might get a match or two, get a break then, but it won't work because teams won't stop training then if they get back. So it's I suppose. The GAA have worked hard in fairness, and I would have been very strong on the close season to give players a chance. But there is really no close season because they train on their own anyway.
Yeah,
they're in the gym, they're working. So it's a difficult one. But I think a little bit more of a gap between matches. The pre-season competitions, I know there's huge supporters of them out there. The public love them because there's somewhere to go after Christmas, to go straight out and go to the matches. People will argue there'll be challenge matches played anyway. There might be, but they're not as intense. Because you don't have the crowds, you don't have people. Once you bring a few thousand people into a venue, it does change the parameters of the game for the players. Whereas you can play challenge matches, you can try lads, you can play 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. But anyway, lads, we could talk about it all day. I don't think there's going to be major change this weekend anyway.
Okay, well, we'll see how it plays out, but thanks for filling us in there on that, Michael, and thanks for joining us as well. Just a reminder before we go that you can get in touch with the podcast at our email address, that's sportpodcasts@rte.ie, and please like and subscribe where you can across the various podcast platforms. We'll be back again with you to review all the action on Monday, but until then, thanks a million.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin